The only way to begin why we tell stories is with a story. And this is going to be a story about some characters who populate our film industry, because the film industry is full of wild and crazy characters. So this story takes place in 1956, back when some of us were born. And it has to do with a film called Giant, which featured Rock Hudson and Elizabeth Taylor, and was produced by Warner Brothers. And it was also James Dean's last film, if you remember James Dean. Anyway, Giant, the book, it was based on a book, and the book was written by a lady named Edna Ferber. And Edna Ferber was a very prolific author, novelist, and playwright back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And Giant was a huge success for Warner Brothers. I mean huge. It made them millions. So one afternoon, Edna Ferber's agent, a guy named Swifty Lazar, well, his real first name was Irving, but everybody called him Swifty, and you'll see why. He phones up Jack Warner at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and tells him he's sending over the galleys of Edna Ferber's next book to him at that moment in time, and that he's going to call him at 10 o'clock Monday morning to find out if Jack wants to make a deal on the book or not. Now, Swifty knows that Jack doesn't read. He's totally illiterate, as were all the studio moguls except Walt Disney. All of these guys were Jewish immigrants who had made a living in the garment industry or selling junk, and they saw there was a lot of money to be made in theaters. Anyway, so Jack Warner couldn't read. Swifty knows this. And he sends him the book at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. So Warner calls up his 4 top story editors, who have now long gone home, and calls them back in. And he tells them that Swifty has sent over the galleys of Edna Ferber's new book. They've got the right of first refusal on it. And what he does, he carves the book into 4 quarters and gives them each a quarter. And he says, Swifty's calling me at 10 o'clock Monday morning, and you guys are going to come into my office at 9 o'clock and tell me what to do. So they go out to the parking lot, these 4 guys, and they're mystified because they each have a quarter of a book. So they agree that they're going to meet at 8 o'clock Monday morning and decide what to tell Jack at 9 o'clock Monday morning. So they come back at 8 o'clock Monday morning, and guess what? None of them have read anything, because you get a quarter of a book, you don't know what to do with it. So they just decide among themselves, look, it's Edna Ferber. Giant was huge. We're on totally safe ground. All we have to do is tell Jack that this is going to be bigger than Giant. It's going to have more romance, more adventure. The audience is going to be double or triple what Giant was. And that's what they did. They went in at 9 o'clock without having read a thing. No one's read anything, right? And they tell Jack, this is going to be amazing. So at 10 o'clock, Swifty calls, and Jack, on the spot, makes a deal for Giant for $500,000. Now, that's 1957 now at this point, but that's about $10 million in today's currency. So he makes the deal for a novel called Ice Palace. And you know what it was? It was a documentary on Eskimos. Swifty was Swifty, and he got the deal done. And Enda Ferber just felt like writing about Eskimos. So the film was made, and it starred Rod Hudson, but it was dead on arrival at the box office. So to begin, I was fortunate to have enjoyed a career comprising a production of over 400 hours of network television, 90 television commercials, and over 200 corporate videos, and also garnering a number of international awards along the way. I also helped create and taught for 3 years in a postgraduate program at Sheridan College, Advanced Film and Television, and taught courses in faith and film at Tyndale University College and Tyndale Seminary. By understanding different and convergent background influences affecting the Son of Man, it should help clarify the methodology of his ministry and how he was able to accomplish his earthly goals. Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary and brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon, and are not his sisters here with us, writes Mark in 6, verse 3. We will refer to this verse again, but now it represents our understanding of Jesus' vocation in life during his teens and 20s. Matthew changes it to, is not this the carpenter's son? Matthew 13:55, possibly to elevate Jesus' status beyond that of a modest tekton. James Tabor provides this elaboration in his book, The Jesus Dynasty. The Greek word tekton is a more generic term referring to builder. It can include one who works with wood, but in its first century Galilean context, it more likely refers to a stoneworker. The 2nd century Proto-Evangelium of James refers to Joseph as a builder of buildings. Houses and wood and buildings were built of stone. Wood was used sparingly, mostly for roof beams and doors, since wood was a scarce building material in the rocky terrain of Palestine. Jesus often drew upon images of stone building to illustrate his teachings. He appears to have been exposed to the building trades, and stonework of some type was most likely his trade. Now, I would submit that a vital factor which influenced Jesus' ministry and his success was his physical conditioning. The years of laboring as a stoneworker would have endowed him with a physique of athletic proportions, evoking Luke's words, the child grew and became strong, Luke 2:39, and again that verse, Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature, Luke 2:52. The slender, elegant Jesus depicted in pictures and paintings is certainly not the Jesus of the Bible. The scriptural Jesus envisioned by Luke was physically robust and powerful. This fact enabled him to make dynamic first impressions upon strangers, particularly his first disciples, rugged fishermen, who were instantly taken with Jesus, respectful of the combination of brawn and brains that he exuded. The second factor relevant and considered in respect to the evolution of Jesus' communication skill is the impact of his family. The Gospels never reveal when or how Joseph died. It is only certain that he did, but not before fathering 4 additional sons, James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon, and at least 2 daughters. The implication of the word all in Matthew 13:56, and are not all his sisters with us, would suggest that there were more than 2, perhaps 3, 4, or even 5 daughters. As the eldest son, Jesus would have inherited the responsibility of caring for this large family and providing for their ongoing physical and spiritual needs. Moreover, ongoing interplay with his family would have guided Jesus in respect to his storytelling expertise. As a keen student of the Torah, Jesus was obviously familiar with the stories of our Old Testament and their rich tapestry of plot and character development. He could see the value of imparting scriptural truth through engaging the reader's sensibilities and directing them to a consequential emotional response. In the course of passing on these stories to his siblings, Jesus had the opportunity to learn the art and craft of storytelling. how to organize the dramatic substance of each tale for maximum effect. Bible storytelling would then transpose itself into other storytelling, most likely practiced at bedtime. Or maybe it became a nightly ritual, Jesus and his bedtime story. And not just for his brothers. As we know, Jesus was partial to women, a trait which was clearly derivative from time spent with his sisters. Undoubtedly, they had a special relationship with Jesus, one which may have been enhanced through special bedtime devotions and tales of imagined romance in far-off lands. If Jesus had been an only child, imagine history might have been much different. The third contributing factor to Jesus' communication skills exists in the cultural landscape of his probable workplace. Nazareth is a bustling city today, but back when Jesus lived, it was one of dozens of sleepy towns spread over Galilee. Its population would have numbered about 200. So how did Joseph and his eldest son make a living? You can't support a family of 9 or 10 in this kind of rural setting. Food for the table and clothing for the body have to be bought and paid for. Simple as that. The only realistic answer to this question is the city of Sepphoris, rising 400 feet above the land just 4 miles away. When Herod Antipas was appointed Tetrarch of Galilee and Perea by Rome, he decided Sepphoris would be home to his royal residence. Sepphoris became the nerve center for Antipas's control of Galilee and Perea. Affairs of state, economy, and culture were administered from the city. Antipas's construction campaign lasted for decades as Sepphoris became a Greco-Roman metropolis home to 30,000 inhabitants, Jews, Arabs, Greeks, and Romans. Now, much of the story material which appear in the parables would have been the result of what Jesus witnessed in Sepphoris. For example, class distinctions between wealthy landlords and struggling peasants, financial disputes between stewards and servants. But the most significant influence emanating from Sepphoris for Jesus was likely the theater. Greek theater had been established in the cultural landscape for over 400 years. To curry favor with Rome, Herod the Great built lavish theaters throughout his kingdom, including a major tribute to Augustus at Caesarea and 2 amphitheaters in Jerusalem. Pleasing Rome was also a priority for his son Herod Antipas, and thus he erected a lavish theater at Sepphoris, which seated, get this, over 4,000 people. It is entirely possible that Joseph and or Jesus worked among the builders of this theater. Once finished, the theater would have been a showcase for the great Greek playwrights such as Euripides and Sophocles. Audiences would have been treated to classic Greek theater, the disciplined structure of dramatic narrative, and the enlightened technique of Greek stage performance. Now, there is solid evidence that Jesus did become familiar with the theater because of the repeated use of the word hypocrite. The use of this word is generic to our common vernacular today, but our use of it comes from the Bible, from Jesus' usage. So why is the word hypocrite relevant for understanding of Jesus' communication skill and style? Here's why. The Greek derivation for the word hypocrite translates itself to mean stage actor. The word hypocrite appears 17 times in the New Testament, always within a saying of Jesus. Of these occurrences, 13 are in Matthew, 3 in Luke, and 1 in Mark. Jesus uses the word to convey an attitude that he considered unfavorable in respect to scribes and Pharisees. Like stage actors who with makeup could convey 2 contrary sides of a facial expression simultaneously, Jesus applied the word to pious religious leaders who paraded their sanctimonious appearances, but who were self-serving in their hearts. By employing the word hypocrite repeatedly, Jesus indicates that the visual relationship to a stage actor is not only the most relevant to engage, but also the one his audience clearly understands, given their ongoing exposure to Greek theater as a cultural reference point. By the way, this 4,000-seat theater is not a product of conjecture. It has been excavated and today bears witness to the cultural impact contemporary to Jesus' Palestinian community. If one accepts the premise that Jesus and his audience were both familiar with the form and expression of Greek theater, then it helps illuminate his developed art of storytelling as a communication strategy which was culturally identifiable in the Greco-Roman world. By working in Sepphoris, Jesus had become thoroughly exposed to the Roman culture which Herod Antipas had imported into Galilee. These three factors then, the cultural impact of Sepphoris, the family obligations which he embraced, and the physical training of his vocation, were of separate and collective importance to the development and success of Jesus' ministry. Jesus spent 30 years in preparation for his 3 years of earthly ministry. It is no accident that he was born into circumstances that would challenge him to grow and develop the character and abilities which would sustain him to the cross. God had created the resources necessary for Jesus to accomplish his purposes. He orchestrated the reconstruction of Sepphoris through Herod Antipas. He blessed Joseph and Mary with many children, then removed Joseph from the scene. And he directed Joseph's vocation that Jesus would inherit for physical and mental strengthening. In order to personalize my talk, I'm now going to offer excerpts of my own faith journey as expressed in film and video storytelling throughout my career. Now, the year is 1976. So one day I get a phone call out of the blue from this guy named Glenn Rutledge. Glenn was connected to Crossroads Communications, best known now for their daily TV series, 100 Huntley Street. Now, I didn't have a clue about Crossroads, as 100 Huntley was still in the planning stages with David Maines, Glenn's brother-in-law. And to this day, I have no idea how or why it was that Glenn gave me a call. But he went on to explain that Crossroads was looking to develop a faith-based series for teenagers, and would I be interested in creating such a television program? So I met Glenn at his Crossroads office in Etobicoke. He seemed nice enough. We struck a deal, and I set about creating this show. Then as now, I've always had a heart for young teens and the undulating changes in their mindsets following puberty, a basic fact which we as adults tend to forget and overlook in our understanding of the milestone influences which affect our children's lives. At any rate, I came up with this idea for a show which would be built around 7 teenagers who would sing and play instruments together. Original songs written for each episode which would reflect a particular theme for that episode. So we auditioned a bunch of kids and came up with our group. My next bright idea was to pair one of these kids each show with a teenage counterpart in different countries around the world. Simple, eh? Thus presenting contemporary lifestyles which were informed by different cultural tapestries. Also, I figured the most interesting approach would be to depict teenage lifestyles in dramatic settings. For example, a girl whose family lived on the runway of the Amsterdam airport in Holland, reflecting the fact that that Holland is continually being eroded by the sea around it. But I wanted this show to be lighthearted, so I added in comedy skits that our teens would perform, ongoing skits interspersed throughout the show. Then, as if that wasn't enough, I came up with the idea of 2 animated characters who I called Duke and Weaver, who would pop up periodically, commenting on pre-designed segments of the show. Now, this was in the days when animation was all hand-drawn Disney style, cell by cell. So the scripts for our animated characters had to be created 6 weeks prior to the taping of in-studio music and skits. I kept waiting for somebody to say no to my ideas, as they represented an undertaking never before attempted by a Christian broadcaster. And more to the point, this program was going to be awfully expensive to produce. But in the end, I believe it worked, and we succeeded in producing 30 half-hour episodes for network broadcast worldwide. Here's an excerpt from an episode built around the theme of sharing. the brief location footage shown here and the teenage lifestyle explored is set on a kibbutz in Israel, Kibbutz Ha'on, dramatically wedged between the Golan Heights and the Sea of Galilee.
See yourself as someone new. Something good could happen to you. Something good could happen to you. Something good could happen to you today. Something good. Something good could happen to you. Something good. Something good could happen to you. Something good. Something good could happen to you.
Hey, lady. You got 10 cents for a cup of coffee?
No, but don't worry about me. I'll be all right.
Don't ignore the guy who asked you for 10 cents for a cup of coffee. Give it to him. Then follow him and find out where they still sell coffee for 10 cents.
You should ask for manners instead of money.
That's what I thought you had the most of.
The easiest way to make ends meet is to get off your own.
Hey, did I borrow $10 from you yesterday?
Nope.
How careless of me. Can you give it to me now?
Hey, Duke, if you had $10 and I asked for some money to buy a hot dog and a milkshake, how much would you have left?
$10.
Now, situated between the Sea of Galilee and the Golan Heights is Hanan, one of 240 kibbutz settlements here in Israel. Now, on this kibbutz, the people work voluntarily to help each other and all of Israel. Now, sitting beside me here is Nir Parley. He is a kibbutznik. Now, that's right. Now, you heard it right, folks. A kibbutznik who was born on this farm.
Nir, may I have the tractor for a few minutes to go to the grapefruit?
Okay, take him.
Excuse me, is that all you do?
Yeah, I used to work only in the grapefruit. This is the way we share the work in the kibbutz. Everyone work in one part of the kibbutz. And so we get experience in it. That's the way we can change this bad land to a good land, so we can grow food in it.
And where do you get the water to water all this land?
Oh, we have our lake over here, Sea of Galilee, and we source the water into the fields. And Frank, you must know that 4% of Israelis are living in kibbutzim, but 50% of the food is produced by people who are living in kibbutzim.
Is that right? Well, oh look, it looks like we're back to horses, so we might as well get going now. Shalom, Beta.
See you.
Unlike Nir, Beta wasn't raised on the kibbutz, but he's typical of the Israelis who volunteer to become pioneers. Selfless, dedicated people who work this land to serve their country. Here, everybody works for each other more than yourself. Let's bring it around here a bit. Now, me, a kibbutznik? No, I couldn't cut it. I mean, I can hardly pronounce the words. You see Galilee? Well, I'll tell you, if I was a fish, there's no place I'd rather be.
Now, that's what I call fishful thinking.
Frank, it's good to see that you're back from the kibbutz. Has this experience changed your attitude towards work at all?
Well, I believe that work makes people happy, and since I'm already happy, I unselfishly give up my share to others.
Frank, as a Christian, when you were swimming in the Sea of Galilee, what were your personal feelings knowing and believing that Jesus walked that water 2,000 years ago?
That he got wet too. That was a pretty amazing feeling for me. When we got there, when we got right to the shores, that's the first thing I wanted to do, was to get into that water. But one afternoon, I remember sitting on the shore and just watching and thinking about that, and that was really amazing to be able to read in the Bible, just turn the pages, read it, and then look out, and there it was. So for me, it was really thrilling to go into it.
to see ladies stand on buses.
So, do you give them your seat?
No, I close my eyes.
I will help you if I can. I will help you. I will take you by the hand. I will take you by the hand. I will never be unkind. I will help you. If you tell me what is on your mind. You're my friend, I'm here to help you. There's not too much that I can do. But I know someone who knows just what you need. Just let me introduce him to you. His name is Jesus. He can help you, yes he can. He can help you. He will take you by the hand. He will take you by the hand. He will never be unkind. He will never. If you tell him what is on your mind. On your mind. He can help you, yes he can. He can help you. He will take you by the hand. He will take you by the hand. He will never be unkind. He will never. If you tell him what is on your mind. On your mind. So just tell him what is on your mind. On your mind. So just tell him what is on your mind. On your mind. So just tell him what is on your mind.
Now, I bet none of you have ever even seen that show before, right? Now, as 100 Huntley Street had gone on the air during the production of this show, Inside Track, it was no longer affordable, and it wasn't really affordable in the first place. So it came to an end after 30 episodes. Today, a series like Inside Track would be pre-sold to international markets and turn a major profits for its owners, but there was no such existing mechanism at Crossroads, no one experienced in distribution to enable such a process back in 1976-77. So you move on, grateful for the opportunity to have established your vision in a broadcast context, grateful for the creative freedom you have enjoyed and the production values the show displayed, and grateful that you have been paid for your work. And we're now established as a working professional. Now, my next gig came as a result of a friendship that I developed at the church my wife and I were attending in Etobicoke, Islington Evangel Center. A young Toronto evangelist named Benny Hinn was very intrigued by my background as an actor. We became friends, and he wanted to know as much as he could about theatrical technique. It was because of his godly relationship that after a series of heart-to-heart talks, I agreed to produce a television series which would feature location footage from his services combined with a studio guest each week who had experienced a legitimate physical healing in one of his services. Within agreeable budgetary parameters, I was given creative freedom to bring his series to life. We became the first faith-based TV series to air in prime time in North America. Now, here's an excerpt from one of the episodes of It's a Miracle.
I'm a Catholic, and we're sort of brought up to believe in miracles.
I'm of the Jewish faith, and I believe in miracles because I believe in God and that God helped the Jewish people.
I don't believe that miracles just occur out of heaven.
I think miracles are a fantasy that people believe in.
No, I do not believe in miracles.
But I think you have to believe in something to keep you going.
Yeah, maybe, but I've never experienced them myself.
I don't believe in miracles, period. And that's it.
My name is Ann Kuiper. For 5 years I suffered terrible agony from a rapidly deteriorating spine. My condition seemed hopeless. Then on March the 5th, 1977, I went to a Benny Hinn service in Stratford, Ontario. Suddenly, that night, my back was totally healed and my spine supernaturally restored. And now to be alive or free of that pain and suffering, believe me, it's a miracle.
Now, I remember you came out that day and you were in the hospital, weren't you? I mean, didn't you come
That
out?
very day I came out, yes.
You came out that very same day from the hospital to the miracle service,
Yes.
and you were healed in the miracle service.
Yes, I was. You see, I had to go home to make room for another patient. I did not want to go through another operation, which the doctor said I should have.
You know, the doctors would say something like, you know, it's a remission or something happened. When a doctor say you were healed, that is a miracle by itself, you know.
Yes, well, the doctor has known me for more than 10 years, you
I
see.
have a letter from your doctor, Dr. McDonald. Listen to what it says. Now, this is interesting. This is interesting. He says, this patient had a spinal fusion in September 1973 and a refusion in March 1974. She had experienced discomfort and pain from the time of this operation and was readmitted for further investigation in February 1977. Following her discharge, I like this, following her discharge in March 1977, she has developed, now listen to this, she has developed the willpower to overcome her disabilities and is now able to lead a normal life. So your doctor said that you were the one who had the willpower to overcome your disabilities. But I must add something. The Lord Jesus gave you that power.
Yes.
And the Lord came, healed your physical body, and now you are leading a normal life. Has your walk changed? Have you changed as a person? Your walk with God, has it changed?
Yes.
I mean, you've been a Christian for all of your life, is that correct?
Well, I never knew the Lord Jesus really face to face as I do now.
You are Dutch.
Yes.
You know, I love Dutch people.
Thank you.
Dutch people are so nice.
Thank you.
And you, I'm sure, were brought up in the Reformed Church.
Yes.
How would you compare your walk, your life, before the miracle and after the miracle?
Well, a complete difference. I always knew the Lord was there and Jesus is our Savior. But I never really relied on my Lord and Savior from minute to minute. I only went to Him what I thought was my time of need.
Yes.
But my time of need is always, and I also have learned to praise Him in everything. I've always asked for things. Now I thank Him. And if I only thank Him, then the gift comes automatically. Because Jesus gives us automatically what we need if we trust Him completely, without a doubt.
Now it's a minute-by-minute life with
Yes.
Him.
Otherwise, I would not be able to do this kind of work we do.
That's tremendous. We'll be right back right after this.
If you would like to know more about the healing power of God and how it can work in your life, then I've got good news for you. Benny Hinn has recorded a special cassette entitled The Secret of Miracles, and he would like you to have a copy of this very personal message absolutely free, no strings attached. If you would like a copy of this free cassette, just write Benny at this address, Box 187, Islington, Ontario. And remember, the best things in life are still free.
Now, as you can see, I once had a full head of hair. Now, as my preference was for producing faith-based projects, they were rather scarce in those days. So in 1979, I started my own business with my brother-in-law, Rivercourt Productions Limited, and set about making a living producing radio and television commercials and offering the full services of a communications company. I lived in Thornhill and operated from a downtown office in Queen Street East back when you could zip up and down the Don Valley Parkway. Among my first clients were several local car dealers. I did like the challenge of producing and telling a story in 30 seconds. It's so disciplined and exacting and allowed me to grow and develop as a young filmmaker. Here are 2 examples of commercials I produced for Robertson Motors, a Danforth car dealer who had just sunk a bundle of money into a new used car showroom and trusted me to tell their story as they needed to attract new customers big time.
But your ad said mint condition.
Probably the weather.
Buying a used car used to be a problem, but Robertson Motors has changed that. Inside their incredible new showroom, Robertson presents a used car paradise.
At this price, it is paradise.
Your dreams come true at Robertson.
You take trade-ins, young fella? We've been shopping for a car for 25 years.
Can't be too hasty.
I've decided Robertson is a place to trust.
And I've decided I'd like a truck. We're only young once.
Your dreams come true at Robertson.
Now, it may look easy, but casting senior citizens and ensuring them to drive old and new vehicles was quite challenging back then, as was just finding the antique car they were driving in that opening scene. Then getting them to move in sync behind the camera car, which was filming them, was also very challenging and tricky. These commercials were scripted, of course, by yours truly, and each scene was planned down to the second in terms of screen time. As a matter of course, when directing commercials, I would use a stopwatch to time each take, and if it was half a second too long, then we'd simply go again until the timing was exact, part of the discipline of commercial storytelling. As well as devising commercials of my own, I also hired out to direct spots for other agencies, usually spots for a national audience. However, I was always given opportunity to inject my own creative input. Here are a few examples of these spots.
Fabulous. Spectacular. It's been an awesome experience.
Just seeing the splashes of color.
This is gorgeous here today.
People here have a real tie with nature.
There's something for anybody that loves the outdoors, loves gardening.
I can't put it into words. You just have to come down and see what it's like.
It's in your own backyard.
It's going to be a great day. The sun is shining, the fish are waiting. And to start the day, there's Kent. Orange, apple, or grapefruit, all 100% pure juice from concentrate. And Kent comes in a new type of carton that guards the flavor for months, so the juice tastes fresh. There's nothing like a glass of Kent to start a great day and keep it going great. Kent, a great way to start the day.
I've really come to depend on the superior sanding powers of Sandplate, the great new sanding tool from Sandvik. Sandplate is made of hardened steel, so it sands easier, quicker, and lasts 100 times longer than regular sandpaper, which means Sandplate can be used over and over and over. So why, with all the high technology on your planet, do some of you still use sandpaper?
Just looking, no problem. Look at Tempo and Topaz in Toronto. Now till March 15th, look at Ford Tempo and Mercury Topaz. Look cool with no charge factory air. Look ahead with 4-year ESP protection. Tempo, Topaz, just $189 a month. Looks like a pretty easy deal. Just looking at cars? Look at Toronto's best.
This is the face of the meanest player in the NHL.
They call me Tiger, 'cause I'm tough on the ice. Then, when I'm home, I try to be nice. But I can't take these bags that can't take my garbage. So I got this from Quickie. It's new, and it's tough. You buy it, and you try it. Garbage bags from Quickie. They're Tiger tough.
Quickie, the name stands for quality on all our fine products.
Now, adult males 25 to 49 were the target audience for my next campaign for another car dealer. And once again, I decided to pitch a known spokesperson, Fergie Oliver, the late-night sportscaster for CFTO TV here in Toronto. Television is driven by ratings, and CFTO was far and away the late-night ratings champion. So it was just common sense that Fergie's audience would translate into a car-buying audience.
Late for work?
Yeah, my car broke down. Can't figure why. It's a new one. Same as yours.
Oh, yeah? You buy yours at Dean Myers?
No.
Then they're not the same. At Dean Myers, we help you drive into the future with confidence. Are you driving in the right direction? Going places is a pleasure if you're confident in your car. Just south of Yorkdale on Dufferin, you'll find the car dealer who gives me confidence. His name is Dean Myers, and if you're like me, you'd rather trust a dealer who's established a reputation for quality and class. That's Dean Myers. We're located at 3180 Dufferin, just south of Yorkdale. So come on in and see us. We'll help you drive into the future with confidence.
Now, Fergie apparently appreciated how I operated, confident, organized, and decisive, while he was, excuse me, in many ways the opposite. Very personable, but completely disorganized and running late. Always looking for a card game and a golfing partner. As our friendship grew, so did my tea times. The phone would ring at 6 in the morning, and before I could utter a word, Fergie would simply say, "Be over in 5 minutes," and hang up. And 5 days a week, we'd be out, have our 18 holes in at Richmond Hill, and the workday was underway by 9 o'clock. But to back up a bit, the year was 1980. It was summer, and I was enjoying a holiday up at our family cottage just south of Thornbury, just lounging on the beach, enjoying a morning coffee, watching my young daughter playing in the sand. Suddenly, my wife appears at the cottage door. A phone call. It's Fergie. He says it's important. Now, I don't know how he even got the cottage number, but I decided to go to the door, casting my eye at my young daughter, somehow wary that our holiday was about to be preempted. Fergie rambled excitedly on the line. CTV has a sponsor looking for a television vehicle. Could I come up with an idea today? Fergie jabbered on some more. He had already pitched CTV the idea of a game show. What did I think? I bit my tongue. I avoided daytime TV like the plague. And more to the point, I loathed game shows. As far as I'm concerned, they were appealed to the most gullible audiences on the planet. I sighed, "Fergie, can't this wait a week? We're enjoying a holiday and the weather's just great." Fergie was characteristically impatient. CTV had a morning time slot opening in mid-September, and someone was going to grab it. Suddenly, then, it was as if I felt the Lord tapping me on the shoulder and saying, "Now's the time." So we packed up and headed back to the city. 6 weeks later, we were on the air with a new show I had created, Just Like Mom, a family game show fashioned around the idea of life at home from a child's point of view. 2 rounds of questions to kids and moms designed to provoke fun answers. The highlight of each show was a bake-off where kids had 60 seconds to concoct the recipe of the day, and the audience loved it because it was always a mad scramble. both in the studio and watching at home. The audience loved this. The climax of their show was a taste test where the 3 contestant moms had 30 seconds to taste the microwave messes the children had made and try to guess which belonged to their own child. This segment was worth the most points and usually decided the game winner. Then the winning child got to spin a large prize wheel which had 16 slots, all good prizes, 4 of which were trips to Disney World. Here's a brief look at how an episode unfolded.
Here we come. It's just like Mom.
And now, Fergie Cockroach! Wow, look at this, Catherine. Another tremendous audience here again today. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Just Like Mom. Boy, we're going to give away some great prizes today.
What animal at the zoo reminds you of your mother?
A gorilla.
A gorilla!
Well, I wonder if Mom will get that. We're going to bring Moms back in just a moment, and we don't want you people to go away, okay? Because we'll be back too. You promise, Rhonda, that you'll still like me after I ask you this question?
I don't know.
What animal at the zoo will Ryan say that reminds him of you? Now, we know that Ryan likes to go to the zoo, Mom.
Yes, he does. I hate to say it, but he might say a monkey. I don't know.
A monkey. Look at his eyes. The judges said fine. He did say gorilla, but we know that...
Let's go to the bake-off. Here's Catherine.
Thank you, Fergie. Today we're going to make raisin muffins. The kids have 60 seconds to mix it all up, starting now. Let's see what goes into the bowls first, guys. Oh, maybe some flour. Flour's a good way to start. We've got raisins here. We have raisins and oatmeal. That's going to be poured all in because all 3 of your moms need a good taste. Some flour, eggs, sugar, they're important ingredients. You're doing all right. You're the cook. You just put that down there. If you want, here's the raisins, and then there's sugar over here. Now just think of all the ingredients you have. Use all the things you see around you. Oh, Smarties in a bowl. What else do you think? Do you need anything else? Maybe some eggs? Some oil, that's a good idea. That's right, just pour some in. Okay, and you can use the eggs if you want. You're doing all right. There's the raisins. Oh, up you go. You okay? Wow. This is the first time we nearly lost a kid in the kitchen.
Who will Daniel say has been the most surprised when they saw your cat, Jenny?
Well, I think he'll probably say my husband.
That's your
Reno.
husband?
Yes.
Okay, why is that? Tell us that story.
Well, he didn't know that we were getting a new cat, and he didn't know anything about Manx cats that don't have a tail. And when he came in, he saw this little kitten, was very surprised to see a kitten, and then when it got up, it didn't have a tail.
Who has been the most surprised when they saw your cat, Jenny?
My dad.
Your dad. And why?
Because it didn't have a tail.
Didn't have a tail, that's right.
Raisin muffins, you got 30 seconds, Mom. Dig right in. As the clock is running, you're looking at Colleen. How does it taste, Colleen? Oh, she said you've got 10 points. Susan, you're the leader with 55. How do they taste? No good. Rhonda, you've got 40 points. How do they taste?
Fantastic.
Fantastic, she said. Way to go, Moms. As they're digging in, nobody's gone for the Coke yet. That's surprising. Oh, there goes Susan. There goes Rhonda for a drink. Okay, Moms, time is up. next. You've got 40, and of course this would put you in the lead. You've got your number up. You've got a matchup. Way to go, Mom. Why did you take 2, Rhonda?
It was so delicious, it just had to be Ryan.
Okay. Susan, it's very simple. You get the matchup, you win. If you don't, Rhonda and Ryan win. So, for the win, Susan and Daniel, hold up your numbers. A 1 and a 1. You've got it. Congratulations. Why did you take 1, Mom?
So many raisins.
So many reasons. Okay. Daniel, I just told him to spin the wheel. There it goes. Lots of great prizes. Of course, the yellow space is there. 3 of them on the wheel. It's a trip to Disney World. Here it comes. Oh, you've got it. A trip to Disney World, Daniel. There he is. He's going to Disney World. Way to go, Daniel. Boy, is he excited. That's it. We're out of time, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Now, the show was a big hit, garnering a 41 share, meaning that 41% of the national television audience with their sets turned on during our time slot were tuned in to our show. Just like Mom was on every day on CTV for 5 years. And after CTV, the show was rebroadcast for another 5 years on YTV, then 5 more years on the Game Show channel. In total, we produced 690 original episodes. It's a lot of television. Okay, so there were 2 key professional relationships I had. One with Fergie, whom you've already seen. The other was with a guy named Michael Anderson, who was a film director of international repute. Michael, a man highly respected in the film industry, also popular with actors, as he had given his first screen roles to such names as Peter Ustinov, Richard Burton, Richard Harris, Robert Shaw, Julia Ormond, and Farrah Fawcett. He was a filmmaker of great taste and judgment, whom I met in the mid-'80s. He was 65, 30 years my senior, and yet full of vitality and passion for film storytelling. Mike grew up in England, got his first break as an assistant on Pygmalion, the screen adaptation of George Bernard Shaw's play of the same name in 1938, which was later remade as My Fair Lady in 1964. Because of his organizational skills and reputation for bringing films under budget, Mike quickly rose through the ranks and gained international acclaim through his World War II smash hit, The Dam Busters, in 1955. His next film, Around the World in 80 Days, won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture of the Year in 1956. From that point, Mike became a much in-demand Hollywood director, making such hit movies as The Quiller Memorandum, Operation Crossbow, The Wreck of the Merry Deer, Logan's Run, and Shoes of the Fisherman. Here now, it was the major release for MGM in 1968, and here's a brief clip from that film, Shoes of the Fisherman.
Lakota, political prisoner 10359-2R. Report to Commandant's office. Political prisoner 10359-2R. Report to Commandant's office.
Fyodor.
Prisoner 10359-2R. Report.
You have haunted me, Kirill, for 20 years. Think back to the Lubyanka. It was a kind of mutual hell, wasn't it? I the tormentor, you the tormented. The man in the mirror, the man who looked into the mirror. At the end, neither of us knew which was which, correct? Correct. I took you to pieces like a watch and put you together again.
I proclaim to you my belief that there is among us a man already marked by God to sit in the chair of St. Peter. Like the first of the apostles, this man has suffered prison and stripes for the faith. The hand of God has led him out of bondage to join us in this conclave. I announce him as my candidate and dedicate to him my vote and my obedience. Kirill Cardinal Lakota.
It's the Russian. Kirill Lakota. They've elected a Russian Pope. The College of Cardinals have elected the first non-Italian Pope since Adrian VI, 400 years ago.
At the time of its release, while acknowledging it as a great achievement in movie making, the critics universally hammered Shoes of the Fisherman over the implausibility of its storyline. A priest from an Eastern Bloc country could never and would never become pope. In 1960, a 40-year-old priest in Warsaw, Karol Wojtyla, wrote a stage play entitled The Jeweler's Shop. The stage play concerned itself with the ideals of love and marriage and focused on the interplay of three couples whose lives are affected and emotionally impacted by World War II. As a young man, Karol became deeply involved in the arts as an actor and dancer, finding spiritual nourishment through artistic expression. 25 years later, in 1975, Pope John Paul I mysteriously died after his induction to the papacy. In the conclave that followed, several Italian cardinals failed to capture sufficient votes to be named John Paul's successor. Finally, in a dramatic swing vote, the lot fell to a Polish cardinal, Karol Wojtyla, and he was ordained as the new supreme head of the Catholic Church, Pope John Paul II. During the mid-'80s, someone in the Vatican made the discovery that the Pope had once authored a play entitled The Jeweler's Shop. Wouldn't it be marvelous to have this work made into a movie? A Vatican demonstration of how artistic achievement by the Holy Father himself could translate into spiritual revelation in contemporary storytelling. When confronted with this notion, the Pope acquiesced to the idea on one condition. There was only one man he would entrust to the task, the man who had made his favorite film, the film which mirrored his true life story, Shoes of the Fisherman. The Pope was adamant on the issue, and Catholic or not, the artistic expression of his story could only be told by this man. So it was that the phone rang one day. It was the Vatican. They explained the situation, and because he was Church of England, if he was willing to take on the assignment, then Michael was to undergo a thorough interrogation by skeptical Vatican officials. He must prove himself spiritually worthy of such an undertaking. Fortuitously, Michael was as equally fluent in French, German, and Italian as he was in English, a major asset for a director who often worked with a cast of actors speaking different languages to one another. The Jeweler's Shop got made. It was premiered in front of an adoring audience of 3,000 at the Vatican, and afterwards Mike enjoyed a brief chat with the Pope, who lavished praise on his chosen director for being faithful to the spirit of his writing. Mike offered up a poster of the film to the Pope, who chuckled and pointed upstairs. He already had one hung in his bedroom. For reasons unexplained, the film never was only released in Europe. But here now is a clip of the opening minutes from The Jeweler's Shop.
3 blocks and I've already got blisters on my feet. Don't you ever get sick and tired of these excursions?
No, but you, that's a different story.
Me? What did I do?
Look, I promised myself on my word of honor I'd be awake at 5. Why is it that I can work past midnight and still be ready on time, only to find you asleep, hungover, and now having the nerve to complain?
How often do you go on these trips?
Not often enough.
My mother's afraid we'll miss the train tonight and we won't get back till morning.
That would be fun.
I think she's afraid about the boys today.
They can take care of themselves.
I don't think that's what she's worried about.
Is it serious?
For Danzig, yes. How would you like to live in a protectorate of the Third Reich?
Hitler is a joke. Andre? Who is that? The one next to Teresa.
If you had gone to church last Sunday, you would have met her.
She's really devout, eh?
She's from Warsaw. Her father's just been appointed a professor at the university.
By the end of this outing, she'll think I have the greatest mind since Pasteur.
Poor Anna.
Who?
That's her name, Anna.
This is Stefan.
You must be Anna.
Yes.
I was talking to Father Adam at Mass on Wednesday morning. He told me that you were new here.
Mm-hmm.
Strange craft, don't you think, Father? We handle objects to measure time, and we tell a man everything passes. Everything changes.
Not the eternal, I hope.
Heaven forbid. There you are. I think you'll find this works all right. That'll be too sloppy.
Oh, that's really funny.
Ah, the young. They're always changing.
They get older. Thank you. Stefan! I thought you must have moved away. I haven't seen you for a whole month. All right, let's go.
Wednesday Mass?
This is the story of young lovers, how they got together, what happened to them. But it's best to start at the beginning, when they were simply friends. As far as they knew, I was a goldsmith who owned a jewelry shop in Krakow. Custom dictated they would have to come to me for wedding rings. For each, that would be a momentous occasion, reaching deep into the past and stretching far into the future. That was years ago, before the war, the Second World War.
Now, the film industry is a feast or famine business. Sometimes there's nothing on the table and other times too much. That was the case in 1995 when Mike was deluged by scripts that were go projects. I spent many painstaking hours trying to separate the wheat from the chaff and the wheat from other wheat. Finally, I was able to focus on one project submitted by Hallmark Entertainment, the name made famous through greeting cards. Hallmark has a film production arm in the business of supplying family TV movies to various U.S. broadcasters. Their project was a proposed TV remake of Rudyard Kipling's Captain's Courageous, which had been originally produced in 1937 when Spencer Tracy won an Academy Award for his performance in the film. This was the right script at the right time for us, and Mike was able to bring it under its projected budget of $3.5 million, about average for a quality TV movie in the 90s. Then one of those God things happened. I happened to be thumbing through a trade magazine, The Hollywood Reporter, when I came across a 2-page color ad from Hallmark Entertainment. The ad featured a shelf of books, titles visible on the rear covers, classic book titles like The Three Musketeers, Tom Sawyer, Homer's The Odyssey, A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I thought it a well-designed ad with a smart layout, then just continued reading. Then a few days later, the light went on. If Hallmark was advertising these titles, then they had likely spent the money developing the scripts to go with them. I thought about it more. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea had been written by the French author Jules Verne. And Jules Verne had also written Around the World in 80 Days, and that had been released exactly 40 years before, a generation in the biblical sense. I felt I was onto something, and I felt the Lord had put me onto it, seeing that ad at this time. Captains Courageous had been a rating success and had also won numerous awards. I reached for the phone and called Dan Martin, who headed up Hallmark's film division. I told him about seeing the trade ad and my assumption that the advertised book titles had been through the expensive and time-consuming process of script development. Dan confirmed this to be true. Then I went on about what a promotional tie-in it would be if Michael liked the existing script for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and we could get a deal done sooner than later. Dan was all ears. I even went so far as to guarantee that I would handle the promotion myself. Whether he believed it at that time didn't matter. Within 48 hours, we had a deal on the table, one that committed Hallmark to spending $8 million US, an unheard of sum for a TV movie back in 1996. But everything unfolded seamlessly, and within 2 weeks, Mike was off to England where the film would be shot. Here now is an excerpt from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Rifleman at the forward! Aim and fire!
You can send your mightiest, but I will have what is mine.
All hands to the bow! All hands to the bow!
Come on, Farragut.
Fire at will!
Here I am. Come on, Farragut.
Yes! Dahlgren, reload!
Father, he's going to sink her.
It's all right, Sophie. Remember, he only wounds them and sends them home with their tails between their legs.
Not this time.
It's all right, it's all right. It's all right.
Brandy.
Murderer!
No, Sophie. Warrior.
Why, Nemo?
Why? Why do you think I didn't sink the Abraham Lincoln during our first encounter? When she limped back to port, my enemies finally gave me their full attention, as I intended. But they still thought they could defeat me, so they sent her back to destroy me. Well, now they will understand. They can send all the navies of the world. I will not be defeated.
How many men died on that ship?
I'm not entirely sure, but A frigate of the Abraham Lincoln class would carry a minimum complement of 650 men.
And you feel nothing?
Quite the contrary, Sophie. I feel a great joy.
Sophie. Sophie!
A moment, Professor. My friend. That ship fired upon me unprovoked, did it not? That was an act of war, was it not? You knew I was at war. I told you the night you pledged me your loyalty. Do you remember? My friend?
And where are you taking us now?
I have some business in the North Atlantic. But our course takes us near the Caribbean Trench, with depths of up to 5,000 fathoms. There, as I promised, you will have an opportunity to prove your theory of static evolution. Consider it the reward of friendship. To science.
I cannot raise my glass with you, Captain Nemo. Not to science, nor to anything else.
As I was saying before, I truly felt this project was the Lord's design for me to step into at that particular time. And as for the promotion, I got them a full page, not a quarter, not a half, but a full page write-up in the New York Times, something Hallmark staff had never been able to get for themselves, and they had their own publicity people in New York. In addition to that, the week the film was aired, and this happened to be Oscar week, I got them the cover story of the TV supplement in the Los Angeles Times. The New York Times and the Los Angeles Times, the two preeminent publications in the United States. When God is on your side, good things happen. Michael was a board member of the Famous People Players, a Toronto-based troupe of developmentally challenged adults who perform what is known as blacklight theater. So I approached Adrienne Clarkson, then a high-profile CBC personality, with this idea of her hosting a political gala in Ottawa that would showcase the Famous People Players. Adrienne bought into the idea, and here's an excerpt from the resulting hour-long CBC special entitled Dare to Dream.
Well, she stormed out, stormed through the glass doors, plunked herself down on the grass outside and cried and kicked her feet. And she was about, I believe, 19. And I went after her, and I didn't know what happened. I says, why? She says, he called me retarded, he called me retarded, he called me retarded. I says, you've got to behave like a young lady. What are all these people walking by thinking of you? You know what they're thinking? They're thinking you are a retard because you're acting like a retard. Now pick yourself up, get up there, and act normal.
Come flying with us as we paint you a dazzling black like rainbow. Voyez toutes nos couleurs dans l'obscurité. Come visit the Famous People Players. Nous vous présentons Famous People Players. Yeah! Voyagez avec nous au pays des chimères. Maintenant que vous avez votre imagination, nous partirons.
And I was determined I really wanted to bring normalization in. I wanted to show integration. I wanted to bring them out into the world and let everybody see them and learn from them, and we could learn, and they could learn from us. They will copy us and they'll behave accordingly. Nobody ever corrected them. This has nothing to do with IQ. This has something to do with life skills and manners. And people never looked at it that way. They always related it to IQ. Well, what's IQ got to do with it?
My family are very happy that they gave me this chance to work with the company. I won't leave the company at all. I want to stay for the rest of my life here.
What we're going to do today is we're going to mount a whole new show. And this show is going to take place on June 10th in Ottawa for the Government of Canada. It has a purpose, to celebrate Canada's 125th birthday and to demonstrate unity. So I thought to open up the show, we're going to have the new version of the O Canada 2 song.
When you've got a child that's got problems like that, you're so overprotective without realising, you know, that you don't make them independent. And I think this job has just done something that we probably would never have done ourselves.
And I came down and tried out. I've been here for 10 years.
I was so surprised when they walked in so normally. During my performance, and I could see everybody, they couldn't see me, one of the young people in the audience had a seizure. And everybody got up to help. Nobody laughed. So it was that day that I started to ask myself, well, just who is retarded here? And it's the normal people. I found this quite shocking, and I was so horrified and realized how important the Famous People Players were really going to be now. It was going to be more about just theater. It was going to be about a whole new way of life. You know how an Indian headdress is made of all feathers, right? Well, let's suppose an Indian headdress comes out on stage and starts to sing. And then all of a sudden, all the feathers come right off the Indian headdress and they become birds and they fly away.
About 2 years later, I got an email from John Havercroft, the regional director of Leader Impact in Ontario, saying he would like to revisit the idea about a video project for Paul. And eventually we met with Paul to discuss it some more. And the three of us decided a video series built around Paul's ministry and his experience might be a good idea. So we had a couple more meetings to discuss a structural approach to what was now a teaching series, including deciding a 12-part series made sense. Each episode created around a specific topic that related to practical Christian experience and Paul's personal experience relating to men who had been developing spiritual maturity under his leadership. So John and I forged ahead, John in his role as executive producer of the video series, and myself as writer, producer, director. I had envisioned a campfire-type style setting with a small group of people surrounding Paul and Cheryl Joseph and the host to create an atmosphere conducive to intimate storytelling. We taped 3 shows a night for 4 consecutive nights, and the series unfolded quite smoothly. Entitled Talking Faith with Paul Henderson, the series stands as a legacy piece for Paul and his ministry for generations to come. Here now is an excerpt from that first episode.
Talking Faith with Paul Henderson. And now, let's give a warm welcome to Paul and our host, Miss Cheryl Josephson.
Thank you, and welcome to Talking Faith with Paul Henderson. My name is Cheryl Josephson, and I'm going to be your host for this series. It's a 12-part series in which we hope to paint a picture of what it looks like to live a life of faith in Jesus Christ every day. We're going to tap into the learnings of Paul Henderson and the life story of yours, Paul, and we can't do that without talking about the goal. So let's start there. Let's just get it out of the way because we know everybody wants you to talk about it. Let me set some context. 1972, we're in the middle of the Cold War, Canada-Russia Summit Series. Our NHL players have never before played Russia's best, and we actually thought, I think, a lot of the players thought it would be a cakewalk, and it was anything but. So we go to Moscow. We're in the final game of the series. It's all tied up. Series is tied, game is tied. We're in the last minute of the game, and an entire country is holding its breath. Pick up the story. We know how it ends, but we never get tired of hearing about it.
Well, actually, I had never felt this much pressure in my life, and I did something I'd never done before. I was on the bench. There was about a minute left in the game, and I stood up and started yelling at Peter Mohavlich, the left winger, to come off the ice. Maybe because I'd scored the winning goal in the 2 previous games, but I just had to get out on the ice. Thank goodness Peter thought the coach was yelling at him when I jumped over the boards.
And history was made.
Well, yeah, 10 seconds later, scored a goal that's been called the goal of the century. Yeah. And so it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Do you relive that goal in your head?
Well, Eleanor has to listen to it every night on a tape before we go to bed. It's there.
That significantly changed your life. One goal, a few seconds in time, and it significantly altered your life. But then a few years later, another event also significantly altered your life. Talk about that for a bit.
Well, this was in January of '73. Mel Stevens, the founder of Teen Ranch, Christian sports camp, knocked on my door and asked me if I'd work his hockey school. And I asked him what he paid, and he said, we don't pay anything, they volunteer. And do you not know who you're talking to here? But anyway, we got into a little conversation about spiritual things, and he asked me, if you paid any attention to that. And I said, basically, no. And then he said to me, he says, I see you interviewed on television, and you always seem like you got an edge to yourself. And from my perspective, you're a guy that's got everything. I hear you got a great marriage, and you're doing, you're a hockey player, but you don't seem to be a very happy camper. And nobody had ever said that to me. And I wondered if I'm wearing a sign as we're getting into a conversation. And he encouraged me to look into spirituality. And he said, if you want to do it, I'll help you. I'll get you a Bible, and I'll work with you. And so for the next 2 years, he became my, he gave me a Bible, got me to read it, and I had so many questions, drove him crazy. And we met, every week or 2 weeks together. And he was the guy that convinced me that Jesus was who he said he was. Yeah. He convinced me that God was real. He convinced me that the Bible was reliable, because I can see that he really believed it and he lived it on a day-to-day basis. And
then in 1975?
1975, it was actually, I didn't know it at the time, it was his birthday. March 12th, 1975. I was in my room, and I got used to getting up in the morning and talking to God, and I was reading the Bible. And I found myself saying, Lord, there's a lot I don't understand, but I'm convinced that you're real. I'm convinced that Jesus Christ is who he said he is. And I know I've done so many things wrong, and I know I need forgiveness. And so right now, I ask you to come into my life as my Lord and Savior. I want you to forgive everything that I've ever done, like the way you say you will, like Mel tells me you will. And in the same breath I said, don't you ever expect me to tell anybody about this. I'm going to be one of those Secret Service Christians. I actually said that to him.
Did you hear God chuckling?
I'm sure that he must have.
Was there a verse, or is there a verse that sums up the commitment you made that day, and what it means to you to make that commitment?
Yeah, I spent 2 years. I spent 2 years looking at it. And one of the verses that Mel showed me way back, he says, this is, if you're going to give your life to the Lord, it's a serious commitment. And Luke 9:23 was one of the verses. If anyone wishes to come after me, they must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. And that's why it took me a long time to do it. Can I really, really do that? The wonderful thing about it, Cheryl, is I put that stake on the ground that day absolutely convinced. I'd spent so much time looking into God, and I can tell you I've never doubted that since. I've never had to go, like, is there a God? Or when things go tough, like, where are you? And all that search, and Mel Stevens, but I'll tell you what, and in fact, I was talking to Mel last week, and I said to Mel, I'm not sure that I would have ever become a Christian if it hadn't been for you, because I sure was not going to go to church. And if I did go to church just for Eleanor's sake, I was really on the golf course anyway. And so I said to Mel, I am so, so thankful to you.
Now, meaningful storytelling is obviously my passion, and I enjoy the constant new challenges every story idea poses. As we near the close of our time together, I wanted to share the most challenging subject matter I've ever been faced with in my career as a filmmaker. Working with children and animals is something that constantly tests your adaptability because they're both so spontaneous and unpredictable in their behavior. But honestly, I love working with them. A few years ago, I decided to make a TV pilot for a children's series. Pilot projects always test the limits of your imagination. I remember as a kid reading The Adventures of Peter Rabbit and those talking animals. So I decided to try and bring an animal story to life, and along with a friend, we created a pilot entitled The Adventures of Duke and Gizmo. I had envisioned creating a story set against a population of barnyard animals. The central characters in the story would be two dog pals, one named Duke, wise, noble, and virtuous, the other named Gizmo, lovable, impulsive, and prone to misadventure. Each episode would follow the two in their barnyard community, no humans allowed, and evolve into adventure prompted by Gizmo's insatiable appetite and taste for hazardous exploits. Exploits which led him to the precipice of suspense, which could only be resolved by Duke's patient and caring rescue maneuvers. Here then is an excerpt from that pilot episode directed to the attention of the child within us all.
It's Sophie's birthday.
Oh, then we should get her a present. Surprise her with something.
Yeah, a special something.
Hey, let's check out Branch Creek. I'm sure we'll find something there.
Oh, boy! I'll be there in a minute.
Hey, to eat! Oh, what a birthday treat.
Morning, Sophie. I just want to wish you happiness on this, your most special day of the year.
But nothing special has happened.
Oh, yes, it did. But on this very day, a different day, a day long ago.
Long ago?
A long time ago, when you were born.
How dare you? How dare you? Long ago, long ago.
Oh, boy, big mistake. Should have brought a present. Oh, boy.
Long ago.
Age. A touchy subject for some.
Sophie's not upset by the idea of a birthday. In fact, she's proud of her age. As long as no one else knows.
Poor Gizmo. He just wanted to say, Happy birthday!
Oh, boy. Duke, poor Sophie. It's her birthday and no one's paying attention.
Well, then it's up to us.
We gotta find a special something that's even more special than the present we had in mind.
Which was?
Come to think of it, I can't think of it, but it must have been a yummy thing.
Maybe red apples. Sophie would like red apples.
So would I.
should be a tree full of ripe red apples down here.
Do you think when we find it, we could stop and maybe have a snack? 1 or 2 apples, maybe.
Why not?
Gosh, dude, the water's in an awful hurry over there. Why would it be in such a hurry?
Rushing water, Giz.
Okay, so then it's rushing. Where?
The Great Sea. A sea that stretches beyond where animals dream.
The apples, Duke. Gotta get the apples. Now, what's this? It appears to be a special something. Ha!
Gizmo, what are you doing?
I'm not quite sure. Oh.
Quick, Giz, jump off.
Uh-oh.
Jump. Jump!
Oh, Duke, this is getting a little scary. Oh boy! Oh boy! This water is rush. What's the hurry? Help!
Sit tight.
Sit tight. Yes. Okay. I'm sitting very tight. Very. Oh boy. Oh boy.
You can't swim.
Not swim. Not jump. Oh boy. Sit tight. Very scary. Oh boy. Don't jump. Help!
Oh no.
Duke! Where are you, Duke? Help!
Gizmo's on his way to the Great Sea. It stretches beyond where animals dream.
To save Gizmo, Duke must outrun the river. But first he must find his way over the mountain.
Dizzy. Oh, dizzy. Red apples. Help! Help!
Gotta keep going. Gotta keep going.
Going is good, and that is, if you know where it is you're going to.
Silas, I suppose I should act surprised.
Well, it would be a nice touch.
You know, I'm in a hurry.
Oh, yes. A mission of mercy. Rescue that cute one. Good swimmer he, given the opportunity.
What opportunity?
Such an adorable raft. But once you fall off, my, unless you can get back on.
Silas, is he...
Come, Duke. There is a rock. The goodbye rock, I like to call it. Where the river enters the Great Sea.
It's all my fault, Giz. This was meant to be a special day. One to celebrate. I'm so sorry.
Duke has reached the Great Sea. But is he too late?
What are Gizmo's chances? Duke doesn't want to consider the odds.
What was that?
Dumping starflies! Oh boy! Boy! Oh dear. Sit tight. Don't jump. Birthday. It's still a birthday.
Gizmo! Gizmo!
Duke! Is that really you? Oh boy! I like drinking water. Water's a fine thing to drink, but that river, it was like the water was trying to drink me. Gosh, Duke, the apples. We don't have a present. Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Oh, Giz, forget the apples. I'm just glad you're safe and sound.
Me too. Oh, so what do you want to do now?
I think we should go to a birthday party.
So I hope you found this exploration of storytelling a positive experience to your faith and an encouragement to your personal satisfaction in respect to storytelling that is high quality, viewer attractive, and emotionally provocative. As we began with Story by Music, so we will likewise close with a music video entitled Excuse Me, performed by a Toronto artist, Lenny Graft. Following the video, my son Brock will lead us in song as we join together to sing How Great Thou Art.
So your life has come to rack and ruin, cause of things that's been my doing. I ain't graceful or well endowed. Maybe I'm just too brash and loud. Well, excuse me, excuse me. Why don't you lose me, abuse me, excuse me? Baby, honey, sugar, they got no place to go. Maybe honey, sugar, this is the end of the show, oh no! When we're on the floor, I stomp and trip instead of doing moves that's hip. Maybe I ain't no Fred Astaire, but baby, you know I just don't care. Well, excuse me, excuse me. Why did you choose me, use me, excuse me? To go. Maybe, honey, sugar, this is the end of the show, oh no! You got yourself a wayward man. The highbrow life just ain't the plan. Maybe, baby, I did you wrong, but now you're singing that same old song. Well, excuse me, excuse me. Why did you lose me, use me, excuse me? Excuse me, excuse me. Well, excuse me. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When Christ shall come with shouts of acclamation, and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart? Then I shall bow in humble adoration, and there will proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
Oh, it's great, it's great, it's an experience.
I learned a lot from the TV production and the Bible verse. Yeah, that's good.
I was blown away, especially I used to watch the show Just Like Moms, and I didn't know it was Paul Burford that put it together. Just spectacular. And bringing it into the Christianity the way he did it, the biblical that he showed us, that was quite incredible to see.
It's a great perspective from two sides. One, from the corporate side of things and the television side of things, and a little bit of the historical fact of where Paul spent a lot of his time, but then also on the biblical side. And the second act, when we heard a lot of the readings that he did from the Bible. So taking the two of them and sort of bringing them together and having fun while he was doing it as well.